Oh, good to have you with us. We're heading up to 20 minutes away from 7 o'clock. I'm Gareth Edwards. Sally Baudet is away for the next few editions of the show. So, Gauteng is moving ahead with its plan to establish a state bank and a pharmaceutical company. Two separate issues. We're going to unpack them for you in the next few moments. The state assets, these two state assets, are set to benefit the disadvantaged. That's certainly the plan. This has been mentioned over a number of years already. There's been some criticism by the Democratic Alliance aimed at the ANC government that it's taking too long to get there. But here we are. It looks like something is moving ahead very, very quickly. Let's find out where we are in the stepping stones of success. Finance MEC Jacob Mamabolo making time for me this evening here on the show. And MEC, thank you for coming in to talk to me. So two different issues. One's the pharmaceutical company. We'll get there. The other is I want to say a provincial state bank. It can't be a state bank. It's a provincial state bank. Where's this come from? What are you trying to achieve here?
Firstly, let me greet you and greet all the viewers, and thank you for inviting us. Just to confirm that you may recall that when Honorable Premier Panyaza Lesufi made his inaugural speech in which he unveiled the provincial exco or the provincial cabinet to make it easier, he mandated and directed provincial treasury to facilitate the establishment of a provincial pharmaceutical company, and secondly, to make sure that we create a bank owned by the provincial government. So to that extent, this was in October 2022. So when I had the honor and privilege of presenting the medium-term budget policy statement towards the end of November, I announced that in order to execute this task, we need to do a legal due diligence. We need to test, both on the bank side and on the pharmaceutical side, what does the law say? What are the do's, what are the don'ts? What are we allowed to do and not allowed to do? What are the options in law that will allow us to move forward? So just directly to your question, let's take the pharmaceutical entity. Currently in the Department of Health, we do have a medical depot which procures and distributes medication, pharmaceutical products to hospitals, to clinics, and to different health facilities. And it was actually established before 1994 by the then Transvaal administration. When the Public Finance Management Act came into place, it was not taken forward to establish it as a properly autonomous, independent institution.
So this is an improvement on that. This isn't a new idea. It's just an improvement on that.
We're not starting from
scratch.
There's currently capacity in the province that we need to make sure that we improve, we modernize, we bring up to the current, level of developments, be they in technology, in innovation, in many other things.
Will that make more medicine available? So it's not a brand new idea. You're improving on what was there.
We're building on what exists.
You're building on what was there, exactly. So will this provide more medicine to people in the province, or will they just provide more efficient medicine to people in the province, or is it both, efficient and more medicine?
So let me say both. Currently, we do have, and some of these things come out in the media, where you have got, let me say, poor management of inventory. Poor inventory management will lead to shortages of medication at different medical tables, so medication is finished. It could be because from the original manufacturers, supply chain, logistics, problems with the containers and them prioritizing their countries, you have got shortage. Secondly, it could be that the capacity for inventory management, what sits at the center, which is the facility, the table itself, what sits in the hospitals, the balancing of that. We have done some bit of analysis, and we have seen that there's a difficulty. For example, the head office of the table itself here in Auckland Park takes only 30% because of limited space capacity.
A physical size issue.
Yeah, the physical size. And it's an old building that started as a place where they're slaughtering, animals, called the technical name there. But it's not a suitable facility. It doesn't have capacity. So 30% sits there. 70% is in the in the medical centers. There's no modern technology to balance, to reconcile.
Because now what you've got is you've got a network of medicine in different places.
Yes.
I understand the pharmaceutical side.
Be...
MEC, forgive me, I do understand the pharmaceutical side, and it's an important part. I think a lot of interest is going to be about this state bank. Help me understand that from the reading I've had on this and the interviews you've done before. So the state bank is trying to fill, or a Gauteng state bank, I want to say provincial state bank, is trying to fill a gap here that commercial banks aren't providing to individuals in townships because they're considered high risk. Is my understanding correct? Is that what you're trying to do?
So let me just say that, when the Premier announced this, one good example I like, which he gave amongst a number of things that he mentioned, except, of course, there are many South Africans that are currently, the way they use is unbanked, quite a huge number of them. In the province, we have got massive townships, we have got SMMEs, we have got township-based entrepreneurs. And what is very clear, there are people in the townships who have got houses. Some of them want loans, want credit, using their houses as security for that. But one thing that is very clear, beyond any shade of doubt, 2 points. One is that because of the historic policy of apartheid, townships' deliberate policy to exclude them, to leave them underdeveloped, consciously underdevelop them. But secondly, there's what is called market failure. The big banks and the current banks, be they retail, be they development, and all the investment banks, they're not looking at the townships. Townships are still in a very difficult state. So there's a deliberate policy, consequentially market failure, which means if we don't go into the townships, we have already passed an act to address this issue. We now need the financial muscle to implement the act that we have passed to make sure that we close that gap. So you could have people that need credit. You could have SMMEs that need credit.
They want to start a small business, grow their business.
So in line with the act that we have passed, we believe that there's a very big opportunity to lift up the situation in the townships through a deliberate financial institution to support the legislative framework we've created.
Help me understand this, though. I mean, it's on paper. It makes sense. I don't think any people are going to argue.
It makes sense not only on paper, in all respects.
It does, I'm sure, in most respects, but perhaps the question's got to be, what about financing and liquidity? How do you start a state bank? Where's the liquidity coming from? Who's doing the underwriting? Where's the financing coming from to provide, I'm sure, these very reasonable loans? Where do you get the money from to start doing that? Where does that money come from?
So let me say to you and the viewers that, one of the most exciting things that is coming out of this process is that there are certain functions in the province that we're already doing that are in part of the portfolio of services and products that are rendered by the commercial banks. We have got an entity in Gauteng called the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller. It is providing loans to SMMEs. We have what we call the Gauteng Infrastructure Partnership Fund, which is with Treasury, which is giving us blended finance to support infrastructure. We have the Gauteng Growth Development Agency that's doing some of the development with respect to productive assets, setting up special economic development zones. So there are resources in the space that are fragmented, that are not optimally used, that are not properly leveraged. So one issue is not just there's going to have to be money from somewhere. This gives us an opportunity to consolidate the little that we haven't.
So you're bringing them into the bank, all those agencies you're saying you're going to bring you into this bank to support the bank, the liquidity, the funding, and you move from there? I'm trying to understand the link here.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to say is this. We have now a due diligence report.
Yes.
It gives us options. It says these are the difficulties, these are the challenges. We have said today we are now going to the Premier and the provincial government to say, this is what the law says, these are the options, this is what can be done. Premier, we need you and EXO to make a decision on the way forward. Then it will clarify, what do we do with the existing institutions? How do we consolidate what we have? Do we leave them as they are? Do we consolidate them? I'm being very careful, and let me be frank with you, not to preempt those conversations. But the point I'm trying to say is we shouldn't look at it in a one-sided way of oh, this is going to put pressure on the fiscus in the province. It can actually give us the opportunity to be more efficient, to bring the little that we have, to consolidate, to leverage partnerships with, I mean, look at GIFA, which is our entity, has raised 1.5 billion to build 18 schools for the Department of Education. So that tells you that with the institutions that we have, depending on the decisions that the provincial government can make, we have more opportunity to be efficient.
There's plans and there's strategies involved in that. I think that's what I'm just trying to get an understanding, MEC, of just where it's going to begin on this. It sounds like there are agreements, potential agreements. It sounds like there are strategies there. I was trying to get a sense of where the money's coming from. I think you've made sense for me on that. I don't want to get into an economics debate with you. I'm not an economist. I do want to know this, though. What is the timeline on this? So is this another step in the right direction, or is this done and dusted, according to you? You can go ahead.
No, it's not done and dusted. In actual fact, we invested 2 million in the bank and in the pharmaceutical company due diligence, so 4 million in total, to try to deep dive into the law. What does the law say? Now, the law has come out and said, don't stop, proceed. But it equally says, hey, there are problems here that you're going to have to comply with. There are certain provisions in the Banks Act, in other provisions, the requirements of the Prudential Authority and others that are going to complicate you. So you have got to start the process of compliance. But on a positive note, at least the law says proceed. And that means tomorrow we are consulting the MEC of Health. We have requested clinicians to be there. I think the MEC is also bringing CEOs of hospitals. That's a major consultation tomorrow. We will be going to organized labor. I'll be meeting with my counterpart in economic development, MEC Mutara. So we are going to enter a very fast-tracked and turbocharged process of consultation to make sure that we can get a stakeholder input on this. And then we will be able to then announce, go to cabinet and say, from consultations we have done, from the legal due diligence we have, we believe that the best option for this province is this. Does the Premier and EXCO agree, or do you have a different matter?
So this is for the pharmaceutical business.
And the bank, to make a real decision of the model.
Okay.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make, which I hope I could make much more clearer, is the due diligence process took long.
Sure.
It was
and
necessary.
no one's going to argue due diligence. Is there a timeline in mind? A year, 2 years?
You know, if I were to be very frank with you, from where I'm sitting, we're looking at presenting to the provincial government a much more phased-in approach so that certain things can start. Yeah. For example, currently we don't have people that were employed to set up a bank. So we need to create that capacity quick and fast. And then every day their work is, okay, compliance, consult Minister of Finance, consult Minister of DPSA, consult this, tie up, then move forward. So it will obviously be in a phased-in approach, but for me, the next cabinet in August, we should be taking a CAP memo there, and there should be a clear model. And once we have that clear model, we can have to look at interim measures, transitional arrangements, and then be able to move forward.
So this could be a case of... So this could be a process once you start getting underway from August, maybe 1 or 2 financial years before you get this underway because of the due diligence, which I understand.
Yeah, we need to put capacity in place to drive this process.
Are you poaching from the private banking sector? Are you getting those expertise in? Are you poaching private doctors?
You know, I'll say to you that one of the good things that makes South Africa a very powerful country compared to many in the world is the appreciation of the principle of diversity. If you look at our constitution, it says, united in our diversity. Yeah. Others have called it, Matthias have called it the rainbow nation. So that diversity, you need it of skills, of experiences, of different strengths that different people are bringing. So the mix of skills, the hybrid model, throwing different experiences, that is going to help us. So we do need combined skills from different sectors and different experiences. In diversity, we are much more stronger. So we shouldn't be, have issues with getting people from the private sector. We shouldn't have a difficulty with drawing people from the private, from non-governmental organizations. We could draw people from organized labor. We could draw people from cooperatives. So I'm saying that diversity is what
the world is your oyster
best.
at this point, is what I'm hearing. MEC, I'm going to start saying goodbye to you in a moment. I am curious, as a last question to you. So I'm going to keep calling it a provincial state bank because I want to ask you about the national state bank. Not you, but there's plans of having a state bank in the future for the country?
Post-bank.
You know, whatever that might be. What now?
No, don't worry. Because
I thought you said post-bank. I was like, oh, here we go. I thought we were going to have a very different discussion, you and I.
Okay.
So where does this provincial state bank fit into the national state bank, if there was to be one? How does that work? People are asking.
So I think the very first point to make is that we are a unitary state. You know, I believe, and this is my view, South Africa will be much more better if we were to diversify banking, financial services sector. Diversified, have as many as possible while dealing with the risks. So in the way that we are looking at the challenges in Gauteng, the challenges right inside the townships, we don't think this will be duplication. We think there are linkages. We could build relationships with commercial banks. We could build partnerships with any national state-owned bank. We could build relations with international development finance institutions. So this bank gives us the opportunity to get into spaces that we have not got into. But I can tell you, certainly, definitely, the township space is a space that requires the provincial government to get into, to pull the private sector and everybody, because if we don't do that, we can't continue to run the challenges that we have in the townships and in other industrial places where there's spatial differences in productive manufacturing, commercial capacity. One is going to pull the other down. So the sooner we get into, if we want to protect Gauteng's 35% contribution to GDP, we've got to make sure that we go tap into the capacity in the townships. Otherwise, one is going to pull the other down. So we want to make sure that if we are to create jobs, grow the economy, SMMEs in the townships, the capacity, the potential that is there, the way forward for this province is to invest in the townships, to pull the private sector and say, you can do business in this area. There are good initiatives. You know, let me give you an example. You have got professionals in the townships. They have to take transport to go to a CBD, followed by their clients to just go look for space. Imagine if government created an office park in a township. Lawyers, accountants, auditors.
The professionals are there. So, it's creating and accessing the informal, economy. MEC, and you and I, I'm sure we're going to talk about this in weeks to come, because I think you've explained it so nicely for us.
Thank you very much.
The informal economy really
you.
is one to tap in. You aren't the only one to say it. MEC, you can see how passionate you are about this as well. There's not there yet. It's not signed off yet. There's a couple of more hurdles. Due diligence is the key word. MEC, thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
And I appreciate your time. MEC for Finance here in Gauteng, Jacob Mamabolo. It's a case of a state-owned bank, a state bank here in the province of Gauteng. You agree, disagree? This is why it's your show. You get to tweet us at ENCA. We'll take this debate forward, but I appreciate the MEC and his time for coming in this evening. We're back with you in just a moment here on South Africa Tonight.